So 2 weeks ago, Michael,
Yes.
I treated you to a little pitch involving DC's titular ghost character, Deadman. And when last we saw Deadman in my pitch, he had just faced off against Rama Kushnu, and he had just kind of had his wings clipped a little bit. He had tried to live in the body of a Parisian to survive, and he came back, and that body started to turn into this horrific kind of mangled ghost type character. And he was convinced by our good friend Loomis, played by Idris Elba in this particular incarnation, to come back and do the bidding of Rama Kushnu. And the big mystery that we were left on in episode 3 is that there's someone in that America going around mimicking the heroic acts of Boston Brand and kind of turning them on their head and inverting them and causing kind of massacres or death in the same vein. So we still have to find out who that mysterious character is. And the other big cliffhanger that we have for that episode is we don't know how Loomis has come back from the dead. He was mortally wounded in episode 3, and we're not really sure how he's come back. So we're going to come straight in onto episode 4. And the name of episode 4 is going to be really, really simple. It's going to be Tinker, Tailor, Soldier, Dead is what we're going to call episode 4. That's
a play on the classic book, Ben.
It is a play on the classic book, which involves the different types of jobs that we have during wartime and how that can affect ordinary men and women. And that's very much the theme of this episode.
And women. Oh, no, you said women.
Rama Kushnu is... And women, sorry. Absolutely. We here at the podcast are equal opportunist fictional screenwriters, and we like to give everyone a fair shake. So, Rama Kushnu,
is that how you hurt your back,
as we sort of found out now, is a little bit backhanded. She's not quite the open... she's not benevolent deity that she pretends to be, okay? And here, we're going to find out that she's not quite happy that Brand hasn't fully accepted his role yet. So for this episode, it's going to be a little bit different. We're going to switch the pace a little bit. We're going to open on what's a very uncomfortable scene in Barcelona this time. Because you remember, we're in Europe, Michael. We haven't gone back to that America yet. And we're going to open on a very strange scene in Barcelona. We're going to see some knives. We're going to see an occult ritual take place. And there's going to be a lot of tension focused on the face of a young woman of about 16 years of age. And unfortunately for this young woman, she's not going to make it to the end of the opening sequence on this particular occasion. We're going to see a large symbol splattered onto a wall in blood. And what it's going to look like is it's going to look like two scales that are tipped in the wrong direction. Okay? So we're keeping with our theme of balance. We're inverting it for the sake of this. And then we're going to snap to a man in prison facing 7 days from death row. Okay? And this man has a name. His name is Larry, and I'm never going to get this right, but I think it's Kluk. Larry Kluk. And he's not in Barcelona at all. He's in Berlin. And Larry Kluk has been wrongly committed to this prison in Berlin for murdering in an occult ritual. But he hasn't really murdered anyone at all. So we're going to see him, and then we're going to flash to a woman who spits at his face. Who spits at his face in the glass. She visits him in prison, spits at his face, and she kind of curses at him in Catalan. So we understand that she has some link to the woman.
What would that sound like, Ben?
I have no idea because I don't speak a lot of Catalan.
You're like, Donde! Oh, that's probably just Spanish.
Yeah, be very, very careful, Michael. Be very, very careful. You'll get us in a lot of trouble here. And we
with
understand
our
what's happening.
Listeners.
And our Catalan listeners, exactly. They're numerous and many and very dedicated to the podcast. And then finally, we're going to be shown one more person. There's going to be a man in a bar in Berlin. He's missing his legs. He's sitting in a wheelchair, and he's actually a former lieutenant called Elias Jones, a former lieutenant in Det America.
Lieutenant Dan.
And we're going to find out where he comes from in just a second. But Boston Brand is going to be introduced to all three of these characters, and he's going to be told something very simple. You have to help them find justice. Each one of these people has been done wrong by. You have to help them balance their own lives and find justice. Okay?
Right.
So Ramakrishna has shown him these three different characters. And he's been shown that he has to help them save their lives. Okay? So we're going to start with Larry Kluke. So he enters into the body of Larry Kluke, and instantly we're brought back to that vibrant color. So remember, when Deadman isn't possessing a body, he's in this world of grey, blues, and greens, okay? And when he finally possesses someone, the world kind of takes on all this color again. That's going to be our kind of aesthetic throughout the series, okay? And what happens here is he realizes that this man, Larry Kluke, is an absolutely fantastic man. He's a very strong man. He's a very good man.
And he's physically strong.
Yes, he's very big and scary. And when Brand is introduced to him, we see him getting beaten up non-stop. So we see that he's not a violent man, even though he could be. He's a big man.
Okay, he's a good egg.
And he's just taking the beating because he has no interest in being a violent soul. So what Brand does here is he begins to try and understand how Larry became convicted of this. And all Larry did was find the body of the poor murdered girl in the ritual. So Larry just happened upon the body.
The weird sex ritual.
Absolutely. While he was in Barcelona. And then what happened was he panicked and he ran to Berlin. So what's actually happening now is he's been locked in prison in Berlin. And he's either going to be on death row or he's waiting for extradition to Barcelona. We'll probably go with...
Yeah, I don't think Germany has death row.
Yeah, I don't think many places in Europe have death row, but this is actually all based on the 2000 and... Oh, I'm definitely going to get the date wrong. There was a run called DC Universe Presents where they gave Deadman a little six-part miniseries. And what I like about this particular run in the Deadman canon is it finally shows Ramakrishna to be less than trustworthy as a deity. She's not some all-powerful deity. She's more of a petty demigod. With some oomph. So I wanted to work this into my arc, and there's a nice... he has a link to all these ordinary lives, and I think it gives his character a nice understanding of humanity again, and kind of links them to what he needs to do. So that's why I've chosen these particular characters. So we can take away the death row run and just have him waiting for extradition to Barcelona. Right. Okay. And Berlin suits us here because our soldier character is in Berlin. He's lost his legs somewhere, and he's now stationed in... No, well, I'm going to explain where he lost his legs. There's a reason he's missing.
It sounds like you're just saying that he's misplaced his leg.
Oh, yeah.
He's lost his leg somewhere, on the train, possibly.
No, unfortunately not. And they're in the same city. So basically, how this all pans out, Michael, instead of wasting your time trying to go through it blow by blow with you, Idris is not going to be much, or Loomis is not going to be much help here because Ramakrishna does not allow it. She wants Brand to go through this himself, to understand himself that he needs to balance the scales. Mm-hmm. And what's going to become very clear is basically... Larry Kluke, the man in prison, will eventually die in an accident being transported from Berlin to... Sorry, he won't die in an accident. He'll die in prison because people will think he's a child murderer and they'll murder him in the prison.
No, like Freddy Krueger.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way that Brand will find this out, he'll possess his body to make him fight back.
Yeah, after he's died.
Absolutely, and it'll be too late. The body will die, and he will fight them off. But Larry's soul will have left the body by the time that he manages to do that. That's no good. What he will realize is that this man knew the soldier, Elias Jones. Elias Jones is important here because he has actually been given a dishonorable discharge. He is the only survivor of a military operation in Iraq. Of a military operation. He's the only survivor of his troop, and his troop were actually murdered by a mysterious man with powers, who painted the same symbol that we saw in this ritual in Catalan on the wall. And then finally, so unfortunately for Larry will die at the hands of more followers of this kind of cult ritual, because he survived, and he won't.
What a bunch of cultists!
Yeah, Bran won't put the pieces together, and he'll find his dead body in the apartment. He won't get there in time, so even though he's a supernatural being, he won't get there in time. And finally, we'll come back to the mother, whose name is Laura Hernandez, and she's going to commit suicide.
Oh, good.
Because she misses her daughter so much. And Bran will possess her and try to stop her, but every time he leaves her body, she'll go back to the same suicidal impulse. Okay?
Oh, no.
And what this lesson teaches us is that well, first of all, it gives Bran's character a new push in terms of a new motivation, in terms of he's going to get extremely angry. His short temper is going to get even angrier with Ramakushnu. He's going to confront her in the next episode and ask why on earth she asked him to intervene in these people's lives if he couldn't help them. Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And this is really important here. And the kind of theme, if you remember from last week, the theme was that we're going to have kind of the 7 stages of grief. And in this one, it's very much negotiation, and how negotiation doesn't work. Anyway, moving on from there, at the end of this episode...
Is each episode going to be one of the 7 stages?
No, not necessarily, but we're going to have a rough approximation. Sometimes we'll combine 2 in each one. Anyway, at the end of this one...
Do you like it
yes.
rough? Is that how you hurt your back?
I mean, I like my series a bit rough.
Very good.
And that's not necessarily how I hurt my back, Michael. That's a terrible accusation. But anyway, who he meets at the end of this is a woman. And this woman can see him whether he is possessing someone or not.
That's
and
an unusual thing.
Absolutely. And she approaches him saying it must be difficult arguing with a woman who doesn't want change. And this is very mysterious, and it turns out that this woman is going to be another demigod, and it's going to be played by Miss Emilia Clarke.
Emilia Clarke.
We're going to have Emilia Clarke because she likes television. She's not against it at all. And she's cute and unsuspecting, and she's going to be... now, I'm going to get this wrong. She's going to be the Greek goddess Aristides. And the Greek goddess Aristides is a daughter of Ares, and she is a goddess of imbalance.
Oh, very good.
And when she meets Boston Brand, she's going to make him question more of Ramakushnu's actions. And she's going to say that how can you trust a goddess that only wants balance when change is the one thing that causes imbalance? So he's so disillusioned with this, and she kind of explains that Ramakushnu actually doesn't want any kind of change at all, because that is balance. To have equilibrium is to have very little change. So she's more or less making sure that things stay the same, and she's not actually as motivated by justice as he seems to believe. Now, what we don't understand and what happens when we see this woman leave is that she has that symbol of the imbalance scale, and that's her symbol. So this will give us a little bit. And finally, at the end of this,
Benjamin, sorry for a moment to interrupt you there. Does she have some sort of sexy outfit?
No, she's just wearing a really simple... See, Aristides moves with the times. She is a big agent of change. So she's a very modern woman in how she's dressed and things like that. I mean, she can be slightly sexy if you want.
Yay!
But when we see Ramakushna, she's always in traditional kind of Hindu dress.
Okay.
Bright colors, vibrant things like that. But Aristides is very much a goddess of change. So she moves with the times as much as possible. What we don't realize is when she leaves Boston Brand, she travels to that America. Where we come upon another massacre. And she says, very, very simply, there's a man covered in blood there. It's the same young man that we followed in the first 3 episodes.
Oh, that guy, yeah.
And he is actually in a prison that has been completely slaughtered in that America. So again, we're mimicking the actions that Boston Brand tries to save. And she says very simply to end this episode, she says, Cleveland Brand, you have done exceptionally well. So there's the big reveal. Cleveland Brand is, of course, the brother of Boston Brand, who is still alive. Okay? Now, who would play him? Well, now, so I have finally kind of come up with a character who I feel could maybe play Boston Brand, and that was Jay Courtney. I settled on Jay Courtney.
Jay Courtney?
Yeah, but far more in his role as Captain Australia, or Captain Boomerang, as Captain Boomerang than as, normal, boring Jay Courtney.
I think his name is Jai.
Jai Courtney, never mind.
I'm not sure. I think it is, though.
Jai, we can do either one, but it's going to be him. And then I think the person that could maybe play his younger brother is possibly your Matt Bomer kind of character. Very handsome, but very twisted in this particular iteration.
Okay.
Because he can do crazy. I don't know if you've ever seen...
When you were describing him, I was picturing Bill Skarsgård.
I'm totally okay. Oh, that's actually way better than anything I could have done. So we can go back to bloody Bill Skarsgård there. We'll just have a complete recasting there. No problem. Bill Skarsgård is a perfect choice. I've feckin' run out of time again, Michael. I'm really bad at this.
No, good. You've got 10 minutes.
I've got 10 minutes. Okay, fair enough.
You got 11 and a half minutes. But
we'll push through it.
Because I've been explaining.
It's going to be a 6-episode series, by the way, because it just gets a bit convoluted in between that. So we're going to go on to episode 5, and it's going to have a really simple name. Oh, my brother, what have you done? It's going to be the name of this. That's not a simple
name, Ben. That's a complicated name.
Okay, fair enough. We'll move on from there. So anyway, what we find out in the next episode is really, really simple. We're back in Paris. Loomis is having a conversation with Brand, who is completely falling apart here. He's witnessed a woman commit suicide. He's witnessed a good man die. And he's witnessed that he basically failed horribly in his tasks. This is all very disillusioning for him.
It's very depressing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's death, man. You don't get to argue with death. This is the whole theme. You can't mess with the balance. And so anyway, Aristides at the end of the last episode told him that to kind of have some say in what happens to him, he needs to go to a bar in London. Okay. And this bar is called Crowley's Keep. Which is a nice little tie-in to Aleister Crowley, who was a famous occultist in Victorian London. And as we all know, Ben loves a bit of Victorian London. I'm a big fan. Yes, he does. So he's going to have to travel to London to visit this bar. And this bar is unique because it's where all the occult forces of Europe kind of go to socialise and drink. Think of the Korean bar in Black Panther, but with lots of spooky magic people.
Okay.
So that's the kind of thing that we're aiming for here. But he has a problem. The bar has really, 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 really strict magic things, and ghosts can't actually enter without setting off kind of a rune.
Really, really strict magic things, right? Okay,
magic restrictions. Sorry, you have to basically abide and wear a special bracelet when you enter that deactivates any mystical power you might have. So, because Loomis only has a loose connection to the occult in that he can see the dead and use magic. Mm-hmm. What Brand wants him to do is he wants him to go in, deactivate the rune, and so Brand can go in and find. And what Brand is looking for here is the tome of his life. And this seems really unusual, but what the bar is famous for is underneath the bar is an ancient kind of
Indian burial site.
No, not quite. It's actually an ancient Roman
burial site
where they keep the tomes of life. It's a kind of a Christian parable thing, but we'll get to that as we go along. This episode is going to be a little bit more fun because we've had a very depressing theme before that. So it's going to be more of a heist episode with some very macabre imagery. When we go to this bar, we're going to see lots of different kind of occult creatures, and the reason that we're introducing a skeleton or two, some vampires, some werewolves. And the reason we're introducing this is basically to kind of world build a little bit more, to show that ghosts are not the only thing. Ghosts and zombies are not the only thing happening here. And we're going to do all that. So the mission is going to be a success overall, but unfortunately this is where Loomis is going to die.
Oh no, Loomis!
Whatever else he had, he's going to die because Ramakushnu finds out as this is going on that Brand is going against her will, and Loomis is going to have his big moment where he's either going to help his friend or he's going to go against the woman that's keeping him alive. And obviously Loomis, because he's a real good egg, is going to choose to help Boston, and as punishment for that, she takes away his power. Okay, and he dies. So, but it's going to be an interesting episode. When he goes down to the cavern, when Brand finally gets down to the cavern, he's going to meet a very interesting character that won't make an appearance until season 2, if we ever get to season 2. But he's going to meet the Son of the Morning, which is we'll get to that in a bit.
Lucifer.
But anyway, pretty much. He gets his book of life. Which is going to help him combat Ramakushnu because it gives him some agency in his own existence again. And when he finally reads the book, he realizes that he was supposed to die and pass on. So Ramakushnu has intervened in his destiny, and he's been kept on the earth against his will. And now that he possesses the book, he possesses some level of power over his own agency again. Now, he delivers his book to Aristides, who requested it as payment for his help. Okay? And this is a huge problem. Okay? When he finishes, he meets the ghost of Loomis. Who tells him that all is not well in that America. And there's a force of evil crossing across that America. And he shows him that it's his brother, Cleveland. And this is where the name of the episode comes, My Brother, What Have You Done? That's where this comes from. And more importantly, we get a huge flashback into Boston's abusive, terrible past.
Oh, yay, depressing.
And we understand that what actually happened here and why Brand is in Europe is that he ran away from America and from that life. And he abandoned his brother, Cleveland. To do this. Okay? So that's where this all comes from. It's kind of, the prodigal son returning. So he has to go back to that America to confront his brother and try and save him. So we move on to the final episode of season 1, which is I haven't actually come up with a great name for this one. But we could...
That's a good name. I haven't come up with a great name for this one.
We could call it Agent of Imbalance if you want. We could call it that one. Because Brand is supposed to be an agent of balance, he can be the agent of imbalance.
Ben, that is a gigantic water bottle you're drinking from.
It's very big, but very necessary because I am exceptionally dehydrated. I'm sweating because the medication is messing with my brain. I feel like I've got a fever, Michael. This is all very tough. So, we open on the next one. He's on a plane. He's in the form. He's possessed someone's body to travel. Boston Brand.
Oh, Boston Brand. Okay.
Boston Brand. And Ramakushnu has taken over the body of the woman next to him. And they're having a massive argument about what this means. And we find out in this, she realizes that he's been interacting with Aristides. Who is the thing, and she says you should never have trusted Aristides, and he says she was more honest with me than you ever were, blah 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 blah. So
great dialogue, stunning dialogue.
I really take my time to write dialogue quite well. And what we find out here is exactly why Cleveland Brand has been chosen, and he has been chosen to be the agent of imbalance. To Brand's balance. And Aristides has an axe to grind with Ramakushnu because she basically undoes all the work that Aristides does. She reorders things. So they don't like each other very much, obviously. And she has her own agent. And this agent has a long and twisted history. And we find out that Cleveland Brown is possessed by her agent. So she uses a ghostly agent just like
it's not
Ramakrishna.
him.
So it's not even his brother. His brother isn't the evil that's doing this. What it actually is the clown. The clown is the name of the spirit that possesses thing. And what the clown actually is, it comes from a really famous graphic novel in 1996 called Death and Glory, where Batman was possessed by this agent of evil. And he has a historical precedent. The clown in DC Comics is actually Boston Brand's exact opposite within the DC universe. And the clown is actually, it's a really unusual guy. He was a circus clown.
Go on.
In Switzerland, who turned informer for the Nazis.
Oh, very interesting.
Yeah, so it's kind of an interesting traitorous kind of character. And when he died, he was offered this ability to... basically, when he became an informer, he then later became an enforcer, and he later became an SS officer.
He's a bloody Nazi clown.
Yeah, it's a Nazi clown, basically. I really liked it. But you'll remember in the first... in part one of this particular pitch, I said that I had Doug Jones in mind for another character. I had Doug Jones in mind for the clown character. He's going to be the evil spirit in this particular one. So basically, the way this works is that Boston Brand is going to have to confront the clown, but obviously the clown is possessing his brother's body, so he's going to have to pull all his punches. And what we find at the end of season 1 is that Boston Brand is going to lose to the clown.
No.
Because the clown has been around much longer. The clown has been around since around 1945. So he's far better used to possessing people and using their body in the right way. And when we see the clown fight, it's going to be extremely twisted. We're going to see Bill Skarsgård's body twisted in lots of different ways and kind of, again... Yeah.
Although, Ben, if this thing... Now, I didn't know this before, but if this thing is a clown, Bill Skarsgård might be a bit on the nose.
Yeah, well, now it's a Pennywise thing, so we might be able to go back to Doug Jones. Maybe we can just go back to Doug Jones in general.
No, Doug Jones is the clown.
Yeah, but I don't know. Okay, we'll have to find a different actor to play the brother then. Okay. We'll figure it out. Maybe Jay Courtney has a younger brother that we can stick in the role. But anyway, what's basically going to happen here is Boston is finally going to understand how much power certain spirits can have in this world. You'll remember at the end of episode 4, he felt very powerless, but the clown has had years of experience and he can actually augment human bodies to be super powerful or super strong, and he can twist their bodies into new forms and things like that. And unfortunately for Boston, he has to watch his brother become this twisted, mangled version of himself because the clown bends him to his will. And eventually Brand loses, and we're going to have our kind of setup for season 2 where he's going to have to master his powers and come back, and he's going to have to forge an uneasy alliance with Ramakrishna. We could equally do this in a season 1 arc if you wanted. We could extend it to 8 episodes or 10 episodes if you really wanted to, and that could be our mid-season point. But that's really as far as I wrote before succumbing to acute back failure and mild medication-induced dementia. But I think there's some interesting elements there. I think it could potentially be something we haven't seen on television before if we got used to using prosthetic effects to do all the body horror and cosmic horror elements that I want to work in as we go. But yeah, that's my pitch. That's my pitch for Deadman. So you get a really odd, twisted kind of horror first season, and we'll see what we could do.
Ben,
anyway,
what shows is it? I mean, tonally, there's a bit of Legion in there. A hint of supernatural as well in certain ways.
Yeah, and there's a few moments of I was thinking far more American Horror Story season 1.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
1 and 2, kind of the more scary elements of things. Once we get back to America, once we push him back to that America, it would take a far more backwater, Americana feel to it, crossroads deals and that kind of thing. Because I do feel that American Gothic aesthetic would suit it once we get back there. And it would also be a nice homage to the Kelly Jones run and Mike Barron run, because all of their stories took part in the Deep South.
Ben, shall we throw it out to the listeners and see who they think would make a good
please.
Good Boston Brand or a good Cleveland Brown?
Yeah, absolutely. Cleveland Brown. Absolutely. Please let us know down below what you think. And please let us know if you would be interested in seeing this series. Do you think... how do you think season 2 should pan out, or do you think we should just keep it in a nice tight season 1? If you're interested, let us know down below, please. We'll put both these episodes in a playlist for you to listen to at your convenience. Don't forget to let us know.
Ben, before we go, give us some recommendations for someone who might want to read something about a dead man.
Oh, to read a dead man, absolutely. Death and Glory is kind of required reading for a dead man. It's great fun to have a read of. As I've told you before, any of the Kelly Jones, Mike Barron stuff is absolutely fantastic. It's great fun to read away on. And then Justice League Dark, especially the first 2 trade paperbacks of Justice League Dark, give you some great insight into Boston Brand's character as kind of an egomaniac or a narcissist. That's where I got a lot of his characterizations from. So take a look at Justice League Dark. Justice League Dark is great because it has Constantine, it has Zatanna, it has a little bit of Shade the Changing Man. You get a real look at DC's occult undertones.
Was there a movie?
Justice League Dark, there was an animated movie. And they stuck Batman in there as well because Batman sells. The movie is a little bit tame. The comic book has some really twisted kind of artwork and some quite macabre tones in it as well. So I would recommend, especially for any horror fans that like the horror elements of this pitch, Justice League Dark, the comic book, the first 2 trade paperbacks are swell.
Very good.
So give them a look. Give them a look-see. Anyway, that's all from us for this week. Let us know down below if you liked it. Amen or a women. Moving on. So let us know down below. Like, subscribe, and God, I'm so drug addled.
All right, bye.
Bye.